We heard President Trump today not really refuting Russia's involvement and not really denouncing Russia's involvement in the 2016 election, saying that both sides, the U.S. intelligence community as well as President Putin, both were believable. Should he have stuck with the intelligence community, the United States intelligence community, when there's ample evidence that Russia has in fact been meddling with elections?
Okay. Well, first, let us understand that, as the president tried to point out, that we are both nations that have our interests. The United States has its interest, and so does Russia. The unrelenting hostility and actually push towards conflict that we have seen towards people, towards the idea that Russia is trying to watch out for its national interest, the same as the United States. And how did that play in this whole issue, which was were the Russians involved with meddling in our last election? Well, yes, the Russians were, and they found it in their interest to meddle in our elections. But what the point is, we meddle in their elections. We meddle all over the world at a much higher rate than what Moscow does. And maybe it's all wrong. But the fact is, we helped overthrow the government of Ukraine, a democratically elected government on Russia's border, and we helped overthrow that. Talk about meddling. And that's what precipitated all this military action. We should make an agreement, and I think the president has taken the first step away from this unrelenting hostility, and then try to find areas of cooperation to try to promote peace rather than conflict.
It seems you're equating Russia's actions to U.S. actions. Is that what you're doing right now? And if that's so, does that mean that you're justifying what Russia has done?
I think that it is wrong for people in one country to go into another country and meddle in their electoral process. And you know what? We do it aggressively and at a much higher level than Russia does. The bottom line is none of us should do that. Instead, we should be trying to find ways of working with Russia in those specific areas that are of mutual interest to both of our countries. We can't blame Putin for watching out for the interests of Russia when we help overthrow the government of Ukraine, for Pete's sakes. And in terms of Crimea, look, the bottom line is that issue should be left up to the people of Crimea to vote on. And I don't agree with Putin on this idea that they had their election there and gave a referendum to the people of Crimea. I don't agree with that. We need an internationally supervised election in Ukraine to try to say, what do the people of Ukraine want, of Crimea, what do the people of Crimea want? And the Russian election there was not internationally verified, so it makes no difference.
Well, Congressman, there are several top U.S. intelligence officials who would very much point to your assessment as incorrect and false. The CIA, the intelligence community, the NSA,
what are you
the
trying?
FBI,
Don't tell me you've got. Look, give me where you disagree with me. Don't say we have all these experts that say you're wrong. Come on. Argue your case. Don't try to bring me down. Argue the case. This is the type of nonsense that's the type of nonsense that we have heard over and over again.
Would you let me get my question out, sir? Sir, would you let me get my question out?
No, you prefaced your question. You prefaced your question with an attack on me. All right. So go right ahead and ask your question after you've used your time to attack me.
Sir,
go ahead.
Sir.
Yeah.
Congressman, respectfully, I preface my question with facts that have been released over the past year, Congressman, by the intelligence community. Are you saying, Congressman, that you disagree? Yes. Sir, would you let me ask my question? Sir, are you saying you're the one playing politics with the findings of the intelligence community? No. Sir, are you saying that you disagree with the findings of the U.S. intelligence community, which has said that Russia tried to advocate for a specific candidate to win the election?
They meddled in our election, as I've just said. They meddled in our election. But what they didn't do was what you and others have been trying to claim, as well as several of the intelligence communities tried to hint at, that there was collusion between Russia and President Donald Trump.
In my question, the fact is, the word collusion.
The fact is, are you going to let me finish my answer to you? The bottom line is that
please don't misrepresent what I'm asking you.
we have had this distortion of the public being saying meddling is the same as collusion. I think that what this today, what we saw, will put that to bed. The American people should understand there has been no evidence of collusion, like the intelligence agencies you're talking about suggested. There's been no collusion, but there's been meddling. And I'm telling you that meddling in other people's elections happens all over the world with almost every major power, including the United States.
Congressman, whether or not there was collusion, I think the results will come out of the Russia investigation by the special counsel. But at this point, isn't it a problem when the president of the United States does not back his own intelligence community and doesn't hold a foreign power accountable, even if the U.S. has done the same thing, meddling in other people's elections?
Look, what's coming out of this whole investigation, and as we saw, the attempt by the Democrats to try to disrupt even the hearing that we were having to try to get to the center, the heart of all of this stuff, the fact is that the FBI and the CIA and other people were involved for political reasons to try to disrupt this new administration, and they had their political motives in attacking Donald Trump. And we saw that in just this hearing we had the other day, where they really stretched everything in order to try to prevent questions that were going to lead to that conclusion, the right conclusion. They were disrupting that hearing. And okay, let me ask you one last point I got to make here. Mm-hmm. Should American people should ask themselves, why did we have, if this Mueller and these other guys who are in our intelligence and law enforcement community are just so pristine pure, why did they bring up something like this and have that indictment right before our president is going to meet with President Putin? The bottom line is that is so arrogant and so evidently political and an attempt to undermine and disrupt this president's right to be president that it should be obvious to the American people. I didn't hear anybody ask about that, by the way.
Do you believe that the American people will be thinking about Russia when they cast their ballots in November? Will this affect your constituents in Orange County?
I think that the American people, including my constituents, want there to be not unrelenting hostility leading to conflict, which is what we've seen on the other side, but instead what President Trump is talking about. Let's find those areas where we can work together. Let's find areas of cooperation that will permit us to build a better relationship and maybe solve some of the conflicts, like in Syria, working with them, or trying to defeat radical Islam. Yeah, my constituents want us to work with Russia where we can, and American people want us to work where we can, rather than this unrelenting hostility and push towards putting Russia and the United States in conflict.